Oh, hello, hello again.
Hello again. It's the fourth call of the Ultimate Self-Healing System online program.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So yes, do you guys have any questions from any of the material, before we jump right in?
No, nothing much. I've been playing around with my pendulum, and I've been making friends with it. Not friends with it, but kind of acquainting with it. So yeah.
Your sound just changed radically. What did we do? What
It's
happened?
a little bit low. I think it's on his end. But.
Yeah. You're not as loud as you were before. I can hear you though.
Yeah. So this morning at the meditation, something very profound happened. We were holding space for two people in the group whose close family members had passed away, and something about family came up. And as we closed our eyes and dropped in, and as we started our meditation, the person who leads the meditation started to lead us into, who best needs, send loving light and energy, what needs to be forgiven, what needs to be healed, or what needs to be let go of. And I had my mom flash across in front of my eyes, and those 25 minutes was very heavy for me. I haven't spoken to her in many, many weeks, and as I was present, I was also noticing feelings of sadness, but I was also allowing myself to have forgiveness for myself, and I was telling her, I am sorry for whatever I did, and I forgive you for whatever you did. So it was very, very profound for me. There's a lot of healing around my mom that's been coming up, and yeah.
Well, you are so in tune with the meridians that we're studying, which is stomach and spleen, right? Because stomach is all about nurturing yourself and nurturing others. And the responses that you gave to yourself and to your mom are totally exactly perfect for that healing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it was heavy. I didn't notice any resistance come up, but however, I did notice sadness, and I allowed the sadness to run its course, and I quickly noticed myself holding myself in a gentle light and forgiving myself for having the anger all these years for her unavailability, or physical or emotional, and but having compassion for that. And I kept telling, I forgive myself, I forgive you, and I'm sorry for whatever I've done, and I hope you can forgive me, and I forgive you. So it was I was able to tune into my heart center, and I could tune into her heart center. So it was quite intense.
That sounds amazing.
Our bodies are pretty adept at bringing up how we feel and then putting it into context with life, and kind of just waiting for us to be able to drop in at times. And it's why meditation is so powerful, because it's a time when our body can really communicate with connect with that we might be thinking, or stuff that we're studying, things where our intention lies. So kind of the next step that's really fun and informative is, when these things come, is to then include that into your what to do when you're having body talk, when you're doing a core talk session with yourself, is to jot down some of these things as they come up, and then revisit that later and ask questions of your body You know, is there something about these feelings, something about this person, this situation that you'd like to talk about?
It's really interesting because I have to admit that I still didn't do the timeline. At the beginning, I felt like big resistance. I'm like, I'm not going through this crap again. You know, I've done it for the course with Carol, and I felt like, oh, I've dealt with the things. I just don't feel like going back. But it's so funny how our bodies, they know that it's like you're working energetically on it. I'm just doing dishes, random stuff, and all those memories keep coming from my childhood, and it's really so interesting how it works, because for me, for about a week, a lot of mother issues coming up as well, a lot. You know, like it's just like memories which I was like, I didn't even know that I remembered it. So I think it's a really deep work. Like once you say yes to it on energetic level, you don't have to physically do it, but it's working.
It's working, exactly.
So, yeah.
Isn't
So
that
it's
amazing?
and all of those emotions, like different emotions, all the frustration, and then the anger, and then like all the forgiveness and all the love actually which is coming with it as well. It's really profound.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you guys.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And speaking of parents and daughters or children, gorgeous, huh?
Yeah, she's
Is that
going
your
to sleep.
youngest?
This is the middle one. The youngest is asleep already, and we were swimming with the two older ones. I was with them swimming with the girls, so
Perfect.
she's coming to say goodnight.
Oh.
And I have few questions, if it's okay to ask.
Yes, please.
For the cleaning of the meridians, when we are doing the cleaning of the meridians, do you think about the event or about the emotions which it brought up when you were doing the cleanse?
Yeah, I think you really can, because when you identify it with your body, when you ask the questions, you know, is this the meridian where this emotion is stuck, or where this event might be stuck? And it says yes, then I think, you know, it's not like you have to go there. It's not like you have to be in that emotion, but I think it's important to be inquisitive in the mind. Wow, what were the feelings around that? And some people, everybody's different. Some people will feel, some people will get images of, you know, little vignettes of what happened in that instance, and others that will reflect on many things in life. And it's those, once you're open to the instructions that your body is giving you, it's nearly, it's very informative. So it can just go from one thing to the next and give you very vital information about where to go with what you're doing. And that way we can look at it kind of from the outside looking in, but it is us. So it's
I lost you guys for a bit. I cannot hear you what you're saying now.
We lost your audio.
Yeah,
Dang it. Is that better? Are we back?
It's better. Yeah, it's back now. Yeah.
Yeah. So like what he's saying, as far as you don't have to do a deep dive into feeling sorrow or anger or something like that, but it's more about acknowledging the emotion. And then also in the same way, oh, that was that situation, or that was that time, and then going to clear the meridian.
Yeah.
And what is also important as you're doing these, you know, more deeper dives into these things that happened in the past, is to identify what age you're at,
Mhm.
and using your pendulum to identify the age. So you're like, oh, is this about this incident? You know, and you say, oh, that incident. And was that when I was, and if you know, like I had a lot of stuff happen when I was 3. And so I'll be like, was that from when I was 3? Yes, you know, or you do the whole number thing to find out the age, right?
Mhm.
Was it before I was 10? Was it before I was 5? Was
Mhm.
it at 5, at 4, at 3? To identify the age, and then say, is anger stuck at that
Mhm.
time because of this incident or whatever emotion you think it is?
Mhm.
And then maybe it's emotion, anger even in the stomach meridian. And when we're dealing with moms, the whole stomach meridian comes up a lot because they
Mm.
are so important to our nurturing.
Mhm.
And
And many times we'll relate to not getting what we wanted or not taking action for ourselves connected with our moms through the stomach meridian versus liver meridian, which is kind of normally when you don't take action for yourself, it's very frustrating. But when it's with your mom, you think, this is because of my mom. And then there's a disconnect with nurturing, which kind of keeps you from being able to take action that's best for you. Does that make sense?
And to self-care. It makes
Yeah.
self-care difficult.
It makes a lot of sense. It's a little bit like Nishla was saying, that when the mom is not there, well, she's there probably, she might be there physically and she's not there emotionally, or any you know, like any combination of those. And from my experience, it was about, I didn't have like there was no nurturing. It was just like the perfectionism. It was the main thing. So it was about doing things and doing them perfectly. And it's so funny because I'm catching myself as well, like having those little chats in my head, which I've been basically programmed. And when I'm on now, it's my 3rd child, and I'm only now learning to look after myself. So it took me 6 years being a mother to realize that I will have to start looking after myself, because then there is not going to be anybody who will be looking after the kids. But yeah, no, it's big thing, and especially with the moms, as we are so connected, they give us our bodies as well. Yeah. So it's really deep, and if the mom is not okay, then I believe that we have such a strong connection that we are taking on. I think this is what I did as well already when I was in the womb of my mom, that I was taking on her frustration and all these kind of things which I'm dealing now with, or I see it as a pattern through my life. So
yeah, and you can clear those times in the womb also. And so it's really cool what you were talking about. You get these flashes of insights of remembering, like, oh my God, she said that, you know, kind of thing. And maybe you remember her saying that and the words are coming out of your mouth. And that's just the perfect time to be like, is there something stuck about that? You know, and say, and what age was that? Go to that age. And was I mad about that? You know, what emotion, you know, tell me what emotion was stuck, or is it anger? Is it fear? Is it, and go through, clear all that. Then those things will not come up again. And if you find yourself, you find yourself starting to say it, having it cleared creates the emotional awareness so that you're like, oh, before you say it, or maybe one word into it, you're like, oh no, I don't want to, no, that's not what I want to do. And that clearing really allows you and allows your brain to help you change your behavior completely. And that's what's so cool, is when you clear it out of the energetic system, it makes it much easier for your brain to help reset those old tapes. And that's, of course, what we want to do, right? Is change our behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very easy to slip into those, like, especially when I'm not present or I'm being pushed,
Yes.
like into the corner, and they are really good in that, those three little munchkins, and they're teaching me a lot. And then I just like, then I say something, and then I'm like, why did I just said that? You know, like, why did I say this? I sound like my mother. It's like so yeah, it's funny.
So we lost
Again, we don't have you guys. We can hear your dog, but we cannot hear you. Oh, it was yours.
we can't hear you.
No.
Yeah, how about now?
No, it's
Okay.
back.
Yes, we can hear you.
Huh, that's weird.
That is weird. You could hear the dog panting, but
No, you could hear it. That's fun.
oh,
It was Nashville's, yeah.
okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what's, in doing work with meridians and doing energetic work that is in conjunction and connected to what's going on with your life, you start to really tune up to what you're, habitually doing, or the consequence of actions that you take and the strategies that you've created. So I mentioned that in context a little bit. We have some people who are doing our year-long program, and it's just so interesting to see. They're 6 months in right now, and it's like they're constantly rediscovering, okay, wow, the context of how I used to do things and the results that I used to get, that's just, it's like just slightly and slowly shifting depending on who it is. And it all depends pretty much on how much you take what's happening in your life and then kind of put it into this system of being able to talk with your body. So I really encourage everyone to, continue to find times when you can have this conversation, because as you do it and as you're learning the material, it's like your body is looking at what you're doing and it's saying, I know what to do with that stuff that you're learning. Ask me. We just find it to be so potent, and I love it that it's in our program, but this is not about us. This is the way our body functions. This is the reality of living on this planet in a physical body.
And what's so cool is you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this awareness of the emotions coming in and these interactions and things coming up and having these, perceptions and having them, you guys then looking at them and going, oh, that's what that is. That's this emotion. And here's how to, forgive and to move through that and change. And adding, clearing the meridians to it really like punches, makes a big punch as well for all the energetics in your body. So you guys are doing fantastically. It's great.
Gives you the update.
Yeah.
That's really what we want.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Lenka?
Yeah, today I was playing with the pendulum a little bit, and I was wondering, do I need to ask the question aloud, or can I do it just in my mind silently? And because I was just sitting here, and I caught myself not saying it aloud.
Yeah.
And just
you can do it. You can do it silently, but there's, I think, more perceptibility. It uses more of our senses, and it also, speaking the words, it engages the brain in a different way. So it's like having the portal for the information to go in when you speak it, because then you're creating your thought pattern, you're hearing yourself speak it, and the body consciousness uses all of that information in being able to prepare and then kind of regurgitate the memory, because it's the body consciousness actually is way more in control of our brain than we think it is. So it is using all of our senses as a tool. You can do it silently but we find that it's more powerful. So, for example, if we're working with somebody, either one-on-one or two-on-one, and we don't speak, the person has no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And if you're working with yourself and you're not speaking, your body is kind of maybe thinking, is this something that I should hold back on? Is this something that I can speak outwardly about? Is it too sensitive? I mean, those are the things that I would think can come up. But I think it's fine. Like when you feel anger or, some repressed emotion in the middle of the night and you just want to run the meridian, that's okay too. But I think for practice, that it's a good thing to speak it out loud, use the pendulum, go through the 4 questions when you start. And I noticed that the people who are in our year-long program, it's amazing to watch, because now every time we have certain calls that are just about how to ask questions. And as each of them goes individually to their question about what they want to, how to ask about something, they do the 4 questions right away. It's like, okay, that's a habit. The habit is really good to develop, and it's why the speaking it out is so good.
And on that same vein, that's why it's also good to trace the meridians on your body. So, because that same question comes up about, well, can I just imagine tracing it? And you absolutely can. It's in the same level of, can I just think the question and have my pendulum, have my body answer through my pendulum? Can I just clear the meridians thinking about it? And it's the same kind of answer that, yes, you can do that. And there are some instances, like in the grocery store or whatever, or in bed when you're exhausted, you're just like, oh, now I can't do anything. Right. But that there is still an extra superpower about actually touching your body. And it's the same idea about actually speaking it out, because then you're using your voice, you're using your ears, you're using more senses. And when you're touching your body and clearing your meridian, you're using your touch, you're engaging more senses than just engaging your brain. So that's why we actually if you can, say it out loud, touch your body, do the whole deal, knowing that that's training your body and all of your senses, that when you do it silently and not touching, that your body goes, oh yeah, it feels like this because I've done it this many times before. And it can just engage those senses like that. And that's what you want, is that whole engagement of all your body's senses to make these huge changes that you're making, right? I mean, you're changing your molecules from the way they were maybe when you were 5 to update them to as an adult. So we want to give those molecules and all your whole system all the help it can get to be like, okay, I got it, done. Sweep down, come back up. I'm so over that.
And do you always cleanse and then energize afterwards, or do you sometimes just cleanse the meridian?
We always clear and energize. Yes. Okay. And that's why with the whole thing about using the pairs of the meridians, because some of those meridians actually clear down. And then for those meridians, that's always the first meridian in the pair. And that's why you energize up the second meridian, because that's the way that meridian goes to energize.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so for example, like today with stomach and spleen, if you do stomach down, you're always going to do spleen up because it's the second one in the pair and it completes the cycle. So as stomach goes down to the second toe, spleen comes up and it completes that cycle of energy. If we do spleen down because the body says, nah, I don't want to do stomach, I just want to do spleen. So then we would do spleen down, which is the opposite direction it runs. And then we would do spleen up to energize it.
Although it looks like you just did kidney, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's kidney.
Down, spleen up.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty clear on the diagrams about which one, you know, clears down and then you energize up the other one, or whichever it is.
And you'll always see, depending on what PDF you're looking at, especially the ones where they're
Side by
where they're
side.
side by side. The one on the left is the first one in the pair, and the one on the right is the second one in the pair. And it's good. This stuff, it just takes a little bit of doing over time to get it memorized. I remember when I was apprenticing with our teacher, I would go, and this is like after 2 weeks in the class, she said, do you want to come and be my co-practitioner for the day? And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know enough of this stuff. So I put the meridians on my hands, what toes they went to and what fingers they went to. And I think cheat sheets are really good. And that's a great way to practice, is to have, and you can just use the sheets also. But know that your body knows this stuff and that it's just a matter of doing it over and over again until you get it.
Yeah. Shall we clear the stomach meridian?
Oh,
I have a
good
question.
idea.
Yes.
I don't know if this might be relevant to this, as we're talking about clearing the meridians and energizing them. To what degree, or does it really matter, the food we eat has a bearing? The food we consume has a bearing on our ability to clear meridians, whether it's quickly or it could be an impediment in some ways. Does food play a role in it?
Yeah, I think food long-term is a long-term health issue. So when you bring food into your body, being able to, the most important thing is to assimilate it so that you can get resources from it. So food is an indicator. The way that you assimilate food and react to food is an indicator of how to address meridians, what questions to ask. And food is like a direct link to our emotional state and how we are assimilating life. So yeah, it really is, it is very, so what we find is that people who are kind of grossly not paying attention to how food affects their lives, they could care less about knowing also how they feel or energetically what's going on. So anybody who's kind of on the side of the fence where we all are, where we're actually wanting to, have life be great and observe when it's not, how it's being affected, you're already in tune with how food is coming into your life. You might not think of it consciously all the time, but I know you both do. But it's this incredible indicator of what else is going on. So when somebody eats something and it's upsetting to them, there's a reason why. And their body never does anything just randomly. It has that assimilation difficulty for a reason. So there, it's like and we don't cover that a lot in the course. It's kind of in a more advanced, but food allergies and sensitivities are really, they are
A huge topic.
It's a huge topic.
And to come at your question, little different angle. So we don't see that the foods you eat actually affect your ability to clear meridians. But what we do see is that your ability to clear your meridians around what foods you eat enable you to eat any food you want. So there are foods for almost all of us that have negative associations. And because of those past negative associations, which can develop into food allergies and such, and issues with digestion and all sorts of things, because people have those so much, then we get digestive problems, we get, problems assimilating all sorts of, you can get acne, you can get there's just tons and tons of symptoms that you can get from food issues. But we find that they are negative associations to those foods, and that those negative associations can be used, can be cleared out using this system. And it's actually amazingly, once you know the basic system, it's amazingly easy to clear out almost any kind of allergies, foods, cats, pollen, environmental, all that kind of stuff using this basic system. So once you got the basics down, then you can figure out, okay, why am I? When did this start? When did this negative association start? And then,
That's interesting you say that. So what I'm trying to gather from what you just talked about with negative associations is that, for example, Jen, she was advised by a chiropractor that she shouldn't be eating nightshades. She can't eat potatoes, tomatoes, bell peppers, and so on and so forth, right? And because apparently it acts up in her body. So are you saying that there is a negative association for her to consume these foods that you can clear?
So actually there is a negative association to, like, say, if what you're saying it's about nightshades, then there may be one or many, or just nightshades in general, that she has a negative association to. And once you find when that negative association happened, clear out the emotions and beliefs and whatever else is all around that negative association, and hence the food allergy, goes away.
Your body metabolically just changes.
Like I used to have negative associations to dairy and wheat and sugar and, the typical stuff. And when we start talking about negative associations in food, it's like the ones you think, the things you think about. Dairy's a lot of times about mom. Wheat, or sometimes rice in an Asian culture, it's about dad, or money, right? And so there are some typical associations that you would understand, and that's where we go first. Okay, if somebody has a dairy allergy, I cleared like so many different ages of dairy allergies for me. So it's very, very common, and dairy is one of the big things that people have issues with.
Yeah. And if you look at sugar, because we're on stomach, we'll just talk about these things a little bit. So a lot of times,
The mic again.
Oh, we lost you there.
Still don't have you.
how about now?
Yeah, now.
That's good. Yeah, our microphone's a little funky. Now it's nice and loud, right?
Yeah.
He's retaping the cord.
Something happened. Our grandchild a few weeks ago bent the connector on our.
He was like, "Arr."
So how is it now? It's good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So our connection with food. So a lot of times we're given food in consolation, especially when we're a child. So mom or dad, especially mom, does something that she wishes she hadn't. And then to try to be good or to say, okay, I really love you, you get a sweet thing, right? So for a lot of kids, as they grow up, it's like, oh, I need love right now, so I'm going to go get some candy. So a lot of people walk around with candy in their pocket because that's their love. And whenever they start to feel a little down, it's like, boom, 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 pop that up. There's my love.
Not that that's on a conscious level.
Not at a conscious level at all.
Right, that's not conscious. And yeah.
But people are also driven. So more conscious eaters think, I shouldn't eat candy all the time or have sugar all the time because I'm told it's not good for me. But that was the love. That was, have a soda, have some ice cream when you were a kid. So it's like you're driven to want it, even though it doesn't make sense in your diet. Yeah. So a lot of times trying to figure out that connection with different foods is tricky. But what's great is that all you have to do is ask your body. It knows exactly why it either has negative associations or has connections with ways of eating and types of food, all this stuff.
And sometimes the negative associations can go into past lives as well. It's not only this time, sometimes this life reinforces what has happened before.
Yeah, we find that many times, especially with soy and rice. Mm-hmm. If somebody's in a culture where soy and rice are not used all the time, and we even had many years back, we had somebody who had a Latin American lifetime where something happened with food. I don't remember exactly what it was, and they died as a kind of starving type thing. And soy in Spanish is I am. Yo soy. And I am no more if the food goes away. So soy was an association with a word from a past life.
And that's where it gets a little tricky too, is because when you're dealing with these negative associations, the oral way that things are said, like the yo soy or sal, is salt. You have to be careful of different languages and different, with B vitamins like B2 or B1. It can actually be about like B2, getting married, two become one, or B1, if you're all right, being one in the world.
Or when the second kid comes along and it was great to be one, but now that there's two of us, B2 is no longer effective in my body. And it sounds kind of like out there. You'd think, how could this be that our body is this communicative? But it has to find some way to tell us what's going on. And the reason that we know this stuff exists is because clinically, this is what we saw over years, because we would get people who were at the end of the line. I've gone to all the nutritionists, I've gone to all the doctors, the internists, the specialists, I've done all the diets, I don't get it. I'm like fading away. I can't nourish myself. And this was the line of questioning that we would take. And we would take the B vitamin and say, body, are you able to assimilate this? And it says, I'd love to, but I don't even see it. I can't, or whatever the body would say. And then we would say, is there something about this that you have a negative association to? When did it happen? It happened at 3. What happened when you were 3? I don't know. When was your sibling born? Oh yeah, at 3. Body, is this about being 2 at 3? Yes. Is it difficult to be 2 instead of 1?
To be
yes.
Big,
and then we would do the clearing, and the person would come back and revitalized health. And we'd just think, what the heck? How could this possibly be that our bodies are that able to tell us what's going on,
Yeah.
but they can.
Because of course, when you're little like that and you have a sibling come along, then all of a sudden you don't have mama's lap much,
And that's a stomach issue.
and that's your stomach meridian, because the nurturing, you're not getting the nurturing you're used to. And, if parents aren't real careful with that, then all of a sudden the older kid feels very put out. So
we totally don't want to overwhelm you with
Yeah, we
this
already did.
type of
done.
information. It's just this is a place where you can go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the extent of where these simple conversations with your body. But you heard when I was saying those questions, there was nothing that was like that. I didn't need to know any special information, right? The questions were still simple. Was it at this age? Was this because of when my sibling was born? Was this because of how it felt, to have another person? You wouldn't actually have to know all of that detail,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd still get the same results by asking, did that cause some congestion with my energetics? And what meridian is it in? Is it in this? So it's all about simple questions leading to your body being able to tell you what to do, either, clear a meridian or find the next step.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Or I'm sorry we overloaded you so much.
Yeah, it's beginning to make sense. Yeah.
Shall we clear stomach meridian?
Yeah, let's do that. So
I'll be the camera person.
stomach is just an incredibly nurturing. So let's first just talk a little bit about stomach. So it's all about nurturing. So that's the one word you would really want to think about. So in the antithesis of that, of course, is not getting what you want, not having nurturing from somebody who you're kind of dependent on. So it's almost always, stomach many times does go back to a time when you're dependent on somebody else. So it goes from the cheeks, and let's also just think first, it governs all of the muscles in the neck, and then it also governs the many of the muscles in the chest. So it's all about being able to chew food, being able to be in your environment. So we'll do from the cheeks. So right underneath the cheekbone is where it starts and goes down into the jaw, and then goes back to the side of the jaw and up into the temples. We go up in the temples, and it just has this little turnaround and comes down the same route into the jaw, and now it goes to the middle of the clavicle. So through the neck, all those muscles that it governs, and then you go out to the middle of the collarbones, where it would be right above the nipple. So then we're going to come down over the nipple. As we come down, it just comes a little bit in, and then goes right over the hip bones and down the. It isn't all the way to the outside, but it's on the top of the outside. And then here we have a little V that comes down, and then we're going to go to the second toe, and then we're going to come up the inside of the leg with the spleen meridian, and under the breast, into the armpits, and down to the side of the rib cage. With a breath. I'm talking, I can't breathe quite the same way that I would if I was doing it, but I really love the idea of having these transitions so that our body can really be taking in the change with the breath. So we're really feeling, these the physicalness of it. Oh, and down the outside of the legs.
Hey, you're not doing that. Okay, second time.
Both, of course, with both, you want to do both legs at the same time. And we come up, under, down.
Let's do spleen now.
Okay, so if your body said, I just want to do spleen first. And can you guys hear us? Yeah. So you're asking questions, and the feeling is like, what the heck? Why did they do that to me? Or why did that happen? Or why couldn't I just, or why didn't they just? Those are kind of the feelings. It's like this kind of disgust with how things were. So, and then your body says, yeah, that's your spleen meridian. And the spleen meridian, it governs the big latissimus dorsi muscle in the back, and then some of the muscles in the trapezius. So this is like a constricting muscle, and you feel kind of like, how come I can't get what I want? So you actually see people that when they get to an advanced version of this, the muscles really start to constrict quite a bit. But for us, in our kind of normal state, it's when we get tight and tightness in our back and shoulders. My dog he's just so interested in what we're doing that he can't let me alone. He's just so interested in Cody. Yes, he says, it's just, I just
have to be in the middle of this, Dad.
In the middle of this.
All right, spleen.
So spleen, you can do with both hands, and it starts on the side of the ribs, goes up into the armpits a little bit, then goes right under the breasts, and there's these incredibly effective, intense, oh, that's so nice of you, Cody.
He will do it for you.
He's going to do it for me. And then it comes right down, and it goes to the inside of the legs.
He says, I can do this, really.
Yeah. We're going to go all the way to the inside of the toe. So this is the medial part of the big toe. And then we're going to come back up that same line to under the breast, the armpits, and down on the side. So if your body says, I want to do spleen, then most like you are going to just do spleen down and then spleen back up. And most likely after that, not always, but if you ask your body now, would you like to do stomach? Many times we'll say, yeah, I'd like to do stomach now. But it was so stuck in the spleen stuff that if you did stomach, it wouldn't clear trying to just go up the spleen. So it's like it wants to really, I think the word that you used earlier, Lenka, is right. It wanted to cleanse out, clean out that kind of stuck congestion, which many times happens down towards the inside of the legs, down in the lower legs towards the ankle. So that's very, very common that either the spleen will want to be cleared first and then stomach, spleen, or the kidney will want to be cleared first and then do bladder, kidney, or the liver will want to be cleared first and then do gallbladder, liver. All those pairs that go together like that. Does that make sense? Okay.
It does, yeah. It's and I'm just looking at it, and when you started to talk about stomach, I actually realized the little one who came to say hello as the middle one, she always wants what her sister has, and it's like or what I have, or it's like she never is happy with what she has. And when she was younger, she used to come, and when we would be like coming in the morning, they would just crawl into our bed, and then she would come and she would just stand in the middle of the door, and she would be saying, I have no space.
Yeah,
So,
those middle ones.
yeah, and I'm like, all right, so it makes really sense. And sometimes she complains that she has a sore stomach, and I noticed that she's more likely to have stomach issues, or if there was a tummy bug, she would be more likely to get that one, and like her sister who would be getting more the throat and chest infections. So it's really interesting, because I can see that there is the stomach and the nurturing that she feels like she's not having what she has, because there is the third one as well. And yeah.
Being the middle has its issues, and so just run stomach on her when she you know, and do the same things. We did this work on our children, and it was amazing, the changes. And even now they're in their later 20s, and they'll be like,
30.
one of them just turned 30, yep, and they're like, I want a clearing, give me a clearing. You know, throw themselves on the bed, I need a clearing. So it really, really, really helped. In fact, the youngest had a really serious fear of heights. And when she was real little, she wouldn't even go down a slide. It was so bad. And so it was really inhibiting her. And we were able to clear that out of her. And she got out of the session and went to the next door neighbor playground where we used to live, and went down this huge slide. And we were like, what? It was amazing. So
And stood up on a big platform. I don't mind. This is okay.
yeah, I mean, it's still not her favorite thing, but it doesn't stop her. And that's the whole idea, right? And especially with the kids, they're very receptive. They totally get it. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
So we have one more thing we want to talk about real fast before we go. And in the module 3, one of the videos talked about your go-to emotion. And so that's a real important thing to figure out. And what it is basically what emotion is kind of your emotional home, right?
Yeah, after watching that, I just realized I'm a complete mess. So thank you, guys.
Oh, no, I don't think so. What makes you say that?
Yeah, no. It's just like it's a mixture of things. So I was wondering like which one is the real go-to.
I think a lot of times, and it does change depending on what work you do, because as you do more work, then the one that really needs help in the moment will bring itself up for your recognition so you can work on it. So I used to have where at first it was totally fear for me, and then it went to grief, and we're talking about over several years, you know, but I knew that there was a lot of fear, and then underneath that was grief, and then underneath that was anger. So you can even ask your body, you know, what is the emotion that, you know, we call it the go-to emotion because it's like that's the emotion that happens first. You know, where do you shoot to anger immediately? Do you go into thinking fearfully about things?
Or do you shut down with sadness?
And so that's how we look at it to more pinpoint what your first go-to emotion would be is, what is that initial reaction? So what do you think yours is?
I think it changed as well, and it depends a lot as well on the situation. And I used to have these kind of, it was just the stuffed emotions. It was just it used to be at the beginning, since I started to kind of observe what is going on emotionally for me when with our first child. And then it would go into those explosions of the rage when I was really, I was scared of my own reactions because I didn't know where it was coming from, but I could feel that it was the one which is like coming, the internal one. So it was a lot of surprise stuff as well, because when you're not allowed to express emotions, or emotions are considered to be a weakness, then you just stuff it in everything. And I think now I went through different ones as well, and I think now it would be, I don't know, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's like I just can't be bothered. So yeah, no, it really varies. And I was thinking about it as well with regards to, I know that men, then they have their cycle as well, but especially for women, like I know I'm noticing that when I'm in the different phases of the moon cycle, then the go-to emotion would be different for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So interesting. And what about you, Ashwin?
I think my go-to emotion has been, it's easy for me to say anger. No, it's not anger, because what as you were sharing, what I was seeing, what was beneath the anger was the loss or the weakening of a perceived foundation beneath my feet.
Mm.
I was afraid that I would fall and there would be nothing for me to cushion my fall.
Yeah.
Jim.
And I think that is because of the nurturing. It goes back to that. It goes back to having life circumstances having forced me to grow up quickly and
Mm.
kind of haphazardly build a foundation so that I can stand on that and show the world that I'm ready. So every time something shows up in day-to-day life, it's easy. Anger is just masking the true feelings, what is beneath. So I'm coming to recognize that now. What essentially is that it's like a creaky, crumbling foundation beneath my feet. And I'm like, oh, if it falls, if it crumbles, and I'm going to fall, and it's like in the tarot deck, it's like the tower collapsing. So everything is going to crumble and fall. And that would mean that I'm gone. I kind of pretty much, I'm perished, you know? So.
And that's scary.
Yes, it is scary. It's almost like, oh, then what's my place here? Where is my place? What is my place? And do I have a place at all? Yeah, it's that.
Yeah. So then that looks like fear.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks like fear.
So what I always find useful too is just again to ask your body and say, so is fear, the go-to emotion that you want to work on right now? Is that the best emotion to work on? Or is anger, or is sadness, or,
And in this context where we have a timeline, because there's events in our lives that affect the way we are now, you want to reflect on that timeline when you're asking the questions. So you could say, body, is it okay to talk about this time when I was 7? And you really identify, because you want to get used to being able to communicate with your body at a level that's really allows your body to bring up very potent information that's going to really help you. So body, is it okay to talk about this time at 7? Was there an emotion that was really stood out at this time when this happened? Yes. Was it this emotion? Was it fear? If your body says yes, then you can say, do you think that from that time that I carry fear forward? Yes. Would it be okay to clear fear from that time? Yes. Is that stuck in my bladder, meridian, whatever it is? But it's most likely going to be bladder. And what's really interesting is that fear and anger can sometimes switch and represent each other.
Right.
And in many healing modalities, they're seen as almost the same thing. But we like to give the body this option to, clear in a specific meridian, because our emotions are so complex that when we create them, we're so creative that we have very specific ways that we're connecting with memories, people, events, and as that emotion is created, is brought into our tissues through specific meridians. And that's how we feel emotions in a physical context, energetically.
Mm-hmm. And Lenka, you have Carol's timeline. Just use that one if you want.
Yeah, I do. No, I want to do your one as well, because I think I'm gonna use the things from Carol's, but there is more stuff coming out this time. I think it's really funny. But I'm kind of finding myself more in a place of an observer, and even though I'm going back through that stuff, it's not like I'm not reliving all the emotions and all the hurt which was there. It's different, and I think I'm coming more from a place of acceptance and forgiveness, and more from a place of love and understanding than from when I was in the hurt, and when I was I was probably in a little bit in a victim mode as well, and so it's really interesting to look at the things now again and see.
Yeah,
and as the layers are kind of working through, then it's just coming more and more things, like that's what I was saying, things which I didn't even know that I remembered, like those little.
Isn't that crazy?
Flashes, yeah. Well, yeah. Everything is in the tissues, so it's there.
Yeah, exactly. And the stomach and spleen are all about that victim mentality. Mm-hmm. And I found also that even within the last year, because I have some parts of my childhood that I haven't remembered in the past, like there was a whole year I didn't remember, and I'm getting just little bursts of memory coming back in, and it's like, oh, well, that's why I don't remember it. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it now, and it's like, well, why did that happen? Why wouldn't I remember? And then it's like these little things, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, so it is just so interesting what comes back little by little, tiny things by little just glimpses, that are just like, oh, wow, look at that. Mm-hmm. We get objective about it, and then can say, oh, I understand now what happened.
Is there something there that needs to be cleared?
Right.
Because they kind of follow through,
right?
Because you're availing your body of this communication method where it can really talk. So as soon as it realizes that you really want to talk to it, it wants to talk, and it will relate things that are happening in your current life as all of the resources to be able to enlighten you in a way where all of your experience just becomes part of your life in an open understanding, in a loving way.
And so you're able to see those cycles that you go through in things that have happened, and the experiences and the emotions that maybe cycle a couple times in your lifetime. And you're like, oh, that looks like what happened before. Now, how do I want that to be now that you are where you are? And you're like, oh, I've had this cycle of a relationship like this, or, maybe I had this relationship with my parent, and then maybe I had a relationship with someone, and then, oh, look what's happening in my relationship now. Oh, do I want to keep that cycle going? And even just little tiny things or smaller things. Oh, I'm not speaking up. Oh, look, I haven't, well, that's not little tiny, right? You're right. Or I'm not putting myself out in the world, and these are things that happen to people like when they're small because their parents don't let them, speak, or don't let them be seen. And then they cycle through, and then all of a sudden they're in adulthood, and they're like, they just keep that pattern going, and they don't realize it's a lifelong pattern. Mm-hmm. And then you start doing this work, and you start seeing those little snippets. It's like, oh gosh, that's happened before. Oh, that looks like I remember that. And then it's like, oh, how do I want it to be? And that's where it's so cool, because you clear the meridians around the past stuff, and you're like, well, I don't have to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. I can completely change. My story can be my story, the story I want. I'm creating it every minute, every day. And that's what we want, right? We can create our beautiful vision.
Mm.
Yay. That's where we're going. Any other questions?
Comments, ahas?
Ahas.
Had a massive realization. You're talking about repeating patterns, and I realized that either subconsciously or consciously, or unconsciously or consciously, I must have, when I took the decision to go down this path 5 years ago, by the time it got to a certain extent where I was fully aware of the patterns, I was realizing how, as a result of how my parental circumstances panned out, pretty much every relationship that I've had with every woman before Jen was all a direct reflection of how my mom showed up for me. So in all those cases, all the women that I dated or had relationship with were, in many ways, I was literally projecting all the things that I wasn't getting or I wasn't feeling upon these women. And they were also showing up exactly the way that my mom showed up. So it is truly fascinating. And of course, I recognize it now. I mean, even just before I met Jen, because that's when I was like, 85% of that was done. And Jen walked into my life at the, they say, perfect time. But I can see it now. I can see how I'd subconsciously allowed that to repeat my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
the lessons are coming until they are learned, isn't it?
Yeah. And to realize also that we all have like a bunch of other patterns like that. And they go, they can be really small, or they can be bigger patterns that are, reflecting in totally different ways. And that awareness of like, oh, this has to do with visibility, or how I speak up in the world, or how I deal with authority, or how I digest my food, or, so there's all of these different, totally cool, situations that have so many levels to them. It's amazing. Humans are so cool.
They say that in Hinduism, Vedic scriptures, it's the most precious gift you can ever have is to be born a human. And to be able to be born a human is something even the gods aspire to. So it's a rare gift, it's a treasure, and and for someone who is on a path that isn't able to realize what an incredibly rare gift it is to be born a human is quite the folly.
It's a brave thing.
It's true. Well, and we hope that these tools will enlighten our path, so that as we go forward and things come along, that, and my wish for everyone is that you can lighten your load as you go forward, so that your vision of what you see, you're still seeing things in a very similar way, because we have such a kind of dramatic history that our brain just loves to keep in front of us, but that you can see that your brain is actually doing that, and that you have a choice, because energetically you're not drawn so much to recapitulate the past. You're actually able to create this enlightened state where you can have whatever experience you want because you see things in a different way and life is affecting you in a way where you're not driven to react or constantly be trying to fix this broken thing, to realize that it's not really broken, that it's the way it was and that it's different now.
Have any ahas, Linka?
It's like Ashwin was saying last week, aha first.
It's a quote.
Yeah.
You know, so
I love it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Wonderful spending time with you guys. We're so glad that you're part of this course and part of our life. We're
Yes.
blessed to be having you here right now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next time. And if you have any questions, go to the Facebook group and we'll communicate there.
Yeah.
all right, lovely.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Bye.
Have a nice day or evening or
And
whatever you
weekend
have.
too.
And weekend. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.